Welcome to the dark room, y'all. It's cussing time. Yay. Because, man, I have seriously wanted to cuss a lot this week. Okay, look, we're online arguing about political violence with people who are fighting to not teach the history of their ancestors, enslaving, torturing, lynching our ancestors, burning down our ancestors' communities, stealing our ancestors' possessions, including land and property and people, and then spending every day since then demonizing our ancestors, the victims, the survivors, and their descendants for being lazy, bitter, criminal minded, always playing the race card. But it was their white ancestors who would not let our African ancestors have shit. And they were so pissed off and jealous about our African ancestors having stuff that they decided they were going to kill our ancestors and take their stuff. And then they got the nerve to now be like, oh, y'all are poor because you're lazy. No, we're poor because y'all are thieves. And you've always been thieves. That's why you're here. Because you came to this country and genocided the indigenous and stole it. Just like, guess who? So we're arguing with these folks online about us and who we are and political violence. All while these folks have done all of this to us, continuing to do the same, all while doing everything politically possible to deny equal access to everything, using the demonization that they created after they did all the evil shit to us as justification. That is how Charlie Kirk made his name and money since he was 19. All right? This demonizing people who are not white, who are not European descended, this demonizing Black folks as violent, this demonizing immigrants as criminals and needing to be kicked out of this country, demonizing feminists as just women who hate men. And if you've been around radical Black spaces long enough, you understand that our critique of feminism is not that white women hated their men. It's that white women wanted to share power with their men. They didn't hate men. White women never said we don't need our men. White women were like, y'all ain't gonna keep us from having property, a credit card, a bank account, and you gonna let us in them boardrooms. White women were certainly not men suck. White women were like, you gonna let us share this power. And then white women turned around and used it against us. So please, these people with this demonizing feminists as, oh, they hate men. No, they don't. No, they don't. No. But these are the kinds of things that Charlie Kirk said. It's how he made his name and his money, demonizing trans people. Trans people ain't done nothing to nobody. Nobody. And I'm not even going to get into the percentage, the small percentage of trans people who are in, but that's not even the point. I don't care. That's why I don't even talk about whether Black people are violent. I don't care. I'm not going to argue the legitimacy of the argument about violence with the most violent people the planet has ever seen. How the hell are you going to argue morality with Satan? That makes no damn sense. But this is what people are doing. This is what people are sitting there arguing with these Charlie Kirk supporters, these white folks online. Oh, he was just a good Christian who loved to debate. And no, he was this, he was that. Stop trying to reason with these people. They're not hearing you. Charlie Kirk was demonizing Black people and trans people when he took his last breath. The last words he was saying were stereotypical tropes about transgender people because somebody in the audience who was not a supporter, who was challenging him, asked him if he knew how many mass shootings had been carried out by transgender people in the past 10 years. And Kirk, with his typical snarky, well, formerly typical, snarky response, too many. That's what he said. He said, too many. And then the person in the audience said, 5. It's exactly 5. Okay, now moving on to the next question. And then it was something about violence, the violent crime in the past 10 years. And then Kirk's response to that was, are we including or excluding gang violence in those numbers? And you know, when white conservative people and even their black conservative lackeys bring up gang violence, you know who they're talking about. All the black and brown people. So that is literally what Charlie Kirk was saying when he took his last breath. But people want to argue that all Charlie Kirk did was to civilly debate others. But they ignore the fact that his debate points were all racist, sexist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, trans and homophobic lies that supported violence towards those groups of people. But I think we need to understand that the people who are saying this about Charlie Kirk, that all he did, he just liked to debate people. We will talk about this debate bullshit in a minute. But all these people are talking, he was just a great debater. He just really loved to debate. He lied. He lied all the time, just like white supremacists do. That is what they do. They lie. So people who say that Charlie Kirk didn't do anything wrong, he was a Christian, he was just debating it, they really believe that. They really believe that this man sitting there lying the way he was, saying the racist, sexist, Islamophobic, nasty, hateful, mean garbage, they believe that was civil. They do believe that was a civil debate because he didn't put his hands on anybody. It doesn't matter that he lied. It doesn't matter that he was a racist and sexist. It didn't matter. They think that was civil. And let me give you an example, though. This is actually, I think, really, really important that we understand what I mean when I talk about how Kirk lied. Ooh, now I can't. Now the video is gone. There is an African Stream video, and it's an old one. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. It's an older video that African Stream published after addressing one of Charlie Kirk's lies from one of his debates, where, because Kirk was, I think, one of the first people to do these round table debates where he debates 20 people at once, right? That kind of thing. This video is from September of last year. Timing is impeccable because the universe is like that. Let me share this with you so you can see what I'm talking about when I talk about how Charlie Kirk lied in these debates.
About half of all prisoners are black.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more crimes than whites do. They commit more murders, they commit more arsons, they commit more kidnappings. For example, blacks are 13% of the population and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Okay, let's talk about it. These are obviously racist claims, but I will respond to them as if Charlie Kirk were a reasonable person.
Black Americans are about 13 to 14% of the population.
Yes,
about half of all prisoners are black.
Wrong. Just 38% of America's prison population is black. That's according to the U.S. government. But it makes you wonder why Charlie feels the need to add an additional 12% to the black prison population. Could it be because his bigoted talking points only work if he exaggerates them? If Charlie were actually looking for the race that makes up half the prison population in the U.S., he'd look no further than white people at 57%.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more crimes than whites do.
Wrong. The word "so" is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more crimes.
He's saying "so" as in therefore, as in one could conclude, but Charlie knows he's lying. Even if he hadn't just lied about the black prison population, Charlie is smart enough to know that correlation does not equal causation, but he's hoping that you don't know that. So he deploys the word "so" to make you think he's coming to an obvious conclusion.
So blacks.
Instead, he's making an illogical, racist leap. Charlie knows that we don't have usable data about who commits crimes. It's impossible to have that data since so many crimes go both unreported and or unsolved. Charlie knows that we only have data about arrests and convictions. I'll come back to that data in a moment. What's painfully obvious is that Charlie Kirk isn't interested in understanding the statistics he so carelessly misquotes. He's interested in making bad faith arguments, something that becomes even more obvious in his next point.
Blacks are 13% of the population and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Wrong again, and loud this time. If Charlie were interested in honesty, he would have mentioned the other 1350 statistics. Yes, black people are about 13% of the population, but make up 53% of all criminal exonerations. In fact, black people make up 55% of all murder exonerations. Specifically, black people are more likely than any other group in this country to be convicted of crimes they did not commit. And then people like you have the nerve to parade these stats around as though they prove something. The reality is that you probably know these stats, but you leave them out on purpose, because to bring that stat into this conversation would make some people think. And that's the last thing a person like you wants.
Yeah.
Black Americans are about 13 to 14% of the population.
yes,
About
we know
half
that.
of all prisoners are black.
All right, there we go. Yeah, that is just one example. That is just one, and I think it's actually the best example. And let me see if I can give you the link to this video so that you can share it with everyone you know, because nobody should continue to perpetrate that disgusting, ridiculous fucking lie about black people being the most criminally minded group of people in the country, that black people commit most of the crime, that black people commit most of the murder. Oh my God. That like how can you be 58% of the exonerations for wrongful convictions, but also commit 50? When you think about it, when you really think about it, like, everybody knows that those talking points make no sense whatsoever. Everybody knows that, but they choose to believe the lies. I am convinced. Now I think I can say that your average, not college educated white person probably doesn't know that what they're told about black people and violence is not true, because where are they where they're ever told the truth, right? But you can't tell me that people like Charlie Kirk, who have access to all this information, you can't tell me that all these politicians, you can't, and I'm not even talking about just conservatives, because if you don't understand that liberals believe this same shit, I don't know what to tell you. Because why do you think so many Democrat mayors wanted Cop City to be built in their cities? Because they believe this garbage, or at least they use the lies that they know are lies to line their pockets in order to do things like build a Cop City in Atlanta, using the excuse that the black youth down here are just violently criminal. We had a whole movement throughout this country of people protesting Democrat mayors, a lot of them black, against building Cop cities in their cities, using the excuse that, well, we got to do something about this crime. And now we're sitting here. I know this is a sort of a separate topic, but it is sort of it is connected. Like, on the one hand, we're sitting here talking about how Trump is Adolf Hitler's long lost brother by deploying the National Guard and taking over local police, using the excuse that crime in these cities full of Black people are out of control. But then at the same time, we're celebrating some of the same Democrat mayors who we were fighting because they wanted to build Cop City in their cities, talking about they're resisting Trump. I have no words for that one. I have no words for that particular part of this whole conundrum, because I don't think we African people in this country realize how completely confused we are. How is it that we just had to protest a bunch of Black Democrat mayors over Cop City, over giving more money to police forces, over cops are still killing people, and we're still having to protest, demanding body cam footage, demanding accountability, demanding that these killer cops be taken off the streets. We're still having those fights against several Black Democrat mayors. But some of the same people that we're fighting for to hold the police accountable for taking our lives and kicking our asses, these same people, because they're standing up to Trump, that they're heroes now. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we got 200 million white people in this country who believe that the bullshit that Charlie Kirk was saying and the bullshit that conservatives, white evangelical Christians, we're going to get into that in a minute, that this bullshit that they talk about, these specific groups of people, we got to deal with them believing that it's true because they're stupid. And they're not stupid because they're poor and they're white. They're stupid because they're indoctrinated by the same white supremacist, patriarchal, xenophobic, Zionist system that we are. And we are stupid too. We are stupid too. We do not understand that the Charlie Kirks of America are celebrated and supported by the Gavin Newsoms of America. They're held in some type of weird political regard by the AOCs of America. Even among the so-called progressive left, there's this young TikTok kid. This is why we got to be careful with these TikTok personalities, with these social media personalities, because this young kid, Dean Winters, and I actually do enjoy his videos. He's funny, and I think he was a former Trump supporter who got a hold of some information, and he was like, "Oh my God, I was stupid," and he becomes this person who invites Trump supporters onto his platform, and he debunks their beliefs. And he's usually very good. He's usually pretty entertaining. He's very young. I don't know how old he is, but he's young. But when Charlie Kirk is assassinated, dear God, this kid is he is crying. But a few weeks ago or months ago, he did a whole video where Kirk is at some event and he is there, Dean Winters, this kid is there, demanding that Kirk debate him. And he makes a big deal about how Charlie Kirk he and his people have been antagonistic toward me. He won't debate me. He hates me, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't want to debate me because he knows I'll wipe the floor with him, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And Charlie Kirk, what happens to him. His chicken came home to roost. And this kid is on his platform crying because the lying, racist, Nazi, Klansman, YouTube, TikTok, Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk was killed because of, well, I guess we can't really say why. We can't say because of, but what we can say is that the hate that he advocated toward other people the acceptability of a few gun deaths to protect the Second Amendment. I mean, he sacrificed himself for what he believed, don't you think? That's what happened. This man said that some level of deaths will have to be acceptable. Some level of gun deaths, some number of gun deaths have to be acceptable in order for us to maintain the Second Amendment, to protect all of our other rights. That's what he said. That some people, it's okay if some people die from gun violence in order to justify the need for the Second Amendment to protect all of the other rights. Okay, so what you crying for? What are you crying for? Because he said some people have to be. So, and by the way, this is one of the reasons that African Stream was deplatformed, not by Donald Trump and his Secretary of State, but by Joe Biden and his Secretary of State. Yeah, that's what happened to African Stream. What was his name? Jake Sullivan? I think that was y'all know how I get people's names messed up because it's 6 o'clock on Friday and I'm hungry and I'm tired. But Sullivan, Blinken, that's who it was. I'm getting all my white people confused. Anthony Blinken, the former Secretary of State under Joe Biden, lied and said that African Stream was funded by Russia. Out of nowhere, no evidence whatsoever, didn't provide any evidence, didn't pretend that he had any evidence, never said he had any evidence. He just got in front of that podium and lied. And African Stream was deplatformed the next day. Taken off of YouTube, taken off of Twitter, So African Stream does not exist anymore not because of Trump, not because of Charlie Kirk. Remember, that video was from 2024, and I'm sure Charlie Kirk saw it. Did Kirk call for? No, he didn't, because after that video, a few months after that, it was Joe Biden's Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, who lied about African Stream being funded by Russia and got African Stream deplatformed. So the Democrats are the resistance to Trump and MAGA and Charlie Kirk, please. Not when Democrats have been just as active in silencing people like us who believe it is our job to do exactly that, to get on these platforms and tell people the truth, the actual truth, and to point out the lies that people like Charlie Kirk and Gavin Newsom and Muriel Bowser and Wes Moore and what's her name, Keisha Lance Bottoms and what's that fool down in Atlanta, Dinkins. Our job is to tell y'all the truth about all of these people. Democrats deplatformed African Stream. So look, the people who were Charlie Kirk supporters believe that what he says and what they already believe about us is true, no matter how much we tell them it's not. No matter how much we show them the facts, it doesn't matter. They don't believe it. They believe what they believe. And to me, that means these people are not logical. They are not moral. They are not Christians. I don't give a damn what they say. I don't give a damn how many churches they go to. I don't care if they in church every day. I don't care if their church has the biggest cross that anybody has ever seen. These people are not Christians. They are not religious. They're not even decent. They are the descendants of the people who enslaved, lynched, and massacred our people and destroyed our towns after they genocided the indigenous, stole their land, and then put the survivors in barren ghettos, reservations. And as you can plainly see through the ICE raids and the use of the military to police our neighborhoods, the murder of 11 Venezuelans in their waters, continuing to coordinate with Israel to murder resistance leaders in Qatar, and to continue the genocide against Palestinians, and the very history of our existence in this country, these people intend to use any violence they can to accomplish what they believe. We are not going to, we're not going to change these people's minds. I don't know what y'all are thinking. I don't know what y'all think you're doing debating with these people online. We're not going to change their minds. These are the people, y'all, who made jokes about throwing people to alligators in Florida when alligator Alcatraz was being built. They made jokes about murdered Palestinians, but they're mad that people are not mourning one of the voices that championed violence toward groups of people they don't like, and worse. And this attitude among these people, this is no different from their ancestors taking their kids to lynchings of our ancestors and taking souvenirs home. Meanwhile, while they were for 2 days, because all that ended today, didn't it? So for 2 days, they've been going on and on and on about making all of us pay, making the blacks pay, making the gays pay, making the trannies pay, making the feminists pay, making the Muslims pay. Benjamin Satan Yahoo comes out and does a press conference or an interview and says the Muslims killed Charlie Kirk. and they are all upset. They're gonna make everybody pay because people are not mourning a Nazi. Meanwhile, no mention at all about the political violence, the everyday political violence of poverty, homelessness, defunding education, lack of health care, unlivable wages, unaffordable food, funding genocide, murdering foreign citizens in their own country's waters, and helping Israel bomb several sovereign nations. Look, this is quite simply, y'all, what these folks, the way they responded to the way other people didn't respond to Charlie Kirk's death, that's American values. What they believe, what Kirk was saying, what Turning Point USA represented, the Heritage Foundation, Donald Trump, the GOP, and the liberal collusion with them, those are American values. When these people talk about American values, that's what they mean. They don't mean loving your neighbor. They don't mean being kind and welcoming and just to everybody. No. What they mean is the right to kill who they want for their profit. And you had better accept the lie they tell about it, or you are next. And remember what I said a couple minutes ago about these people not being Christians? These aren't Christian values either. Because even though the Bible does have a bunch of stupid, oppressive, white supremacist, patriarchal bullshit in it, because of the stupid, oppressive, white supremacist, patriarchal assholes in power who commissioned the translations of the original texts. Because, back then, only the rich and powerful even had access and ability to translate the original texts. The words, the acts, and the message of Jesus Christ, that is the gospel. All that other stuff in the Bible, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to. I mean, I read it, I know what's in there, but it is not what guides what I do. It's the words, the acts, and the message of Jesus Christ, which are not at all what these white Christo-fascist nationalists claim when they call themselves Christians. They're not living out what Jesus Christ said or did or modeled for us. Charlie Kirk didn't say anything that reflected Jesus Christ. Nothing. None of the people who support him, conservative or liberal, black, white, Latinx, Asian, young or old, none of those people who supported Charlie Kirk and the things he said and the things that conservatives say about other groups of people and the things they are doing right now, none of those people are Christians. And I can say that because I am a liberation theology Christian. I am a liberation theology follower of Jesus Christ. So I know that the part of the book that actually matters to you, not me, but to you, as far as my faith is concerned, the thing that's in the book that's important for you is that the book says the world will know me by my fruit. You will not know I'm a Christian because I'm sitting here beating my chest and telling you that I am a Christian. I love the Lord. I am saved. That's no. You will know I am a Christian by how I love people, my joy, my peace, my patience, my kindness, my goodness, my faithfulness, my gentleness, and my self-control. Those things, those characteristics are what we Christians call the fruit of the Spirit. If you have the Spirit of God in you, if you have the Holy Spirit, if you believe in the Trinity, if you have the Spirit of God in you, those are the characteristics that you will show the world. That's how the world will know you are a follower of Jesus Christ. Not by how we dominate others to force them to believe in Jesus Christ. So I'm not interested in having a discussion about whether you believe in Jesus Christ or not. See, that's a part of the gentleness, the gentleness and self-control part of the fruit of the Spirit. Y'all go ahead and go ahead and talk about how you hate Christianity. Okay, cool, fantastic. I'm not interested in what you're a follower of. I'm not interested in what you believe. I'm not interested in whether you believe in Christianity or how you feel about it. As a follower of Jesus, the book literally tells me that's not my concern. My concern is that I treat you the way the fruit helps me treat you, regardless of how you behave. So you know that I am serious about my faith and adhering to the principles that Jesus Christ, not the rest of that shit, that Jesus Christ set for us, that I show you love, that when you're in my presence, you experience joy, peace, that I show you patience, that I show you kindness, that I show you goodness, that I am faithful to my word and I'm faithful to you, that I am gentle and that I have self-control, that I don't give you what you deserve when you treat me like shit. Yeah. So none of these people, regardless of what you believe about Christianity, because that ain't the fucking point, but regardless of what you believe about Christianity for your personal life, I am just bringing this up to tell you, as a follower of Jesus Christ, I can tell you that these people are full of shit and they are full of the devil. They are not Christians. And I do take a bit of naughty joy in knowing that when they get to the other end of their life, they're gonna be surprised at where they wake up. I might be surprised at where I wake up too, but if I wake up where they are, then at least I will be able to laugh my ass off at them ending up in a place where they were sure they were not gonna be, but all of us were, right? None of these people, Charlie Kirk was not a Christian. None of the people who were supporting him were Christians. None of these people reflect any of the fruit of the Spirit that our faith tradition tells us we should exhibit if we actually have the Spirit. Charlie Kirk is interviewing Satan right now. Do you understand me? Charlie Kirk is not in heaven. And if I have to answer to my maker when I get on the other side of my life for what I am saying right now, cool. Okay. But I can tell you for I can tell you for sure that Charlie Kirk is probably sitting down to do a podcast with Satan. And Satan probably don't want to do it because Satan is like, I'm not that bad. Shit, I would never want to genocide people. But he won't be by himself. He already has a large audience of current and future white evangelical Christians who call themselves Christians but are really fascists. He will have an enormous audience that will only grow. None of this, y'all, none of this is about faith. None of this is about Christianity. None of this is about violence. None of this is about crime. All this bullshit about political violence. That's not what this is about. This is about those chickens that Charlie Kirk's mouth let loose coming home. And it's not just his mouth, because, people are like, well, that was an act. Oh boy. No, it wasn't an act. He didn't just say these things with his mouth. He believed them. This is about reaping and sowing, especially for you Christians, people who call yourselves Christians. This is what is meant in the Bible when it says you reap what you sow. Be careful what you put out there. Be careful how you treat other people, because the way you treat other people will always come back to you. It's not about just saying mean things, the reaping and sowing. If you reap hatred, you will sow the result of hatred. If you reap evil, you will sow the results of evil. That's what it means. So for folks who are bringing up his alleged faith, please, he was no follower of Jesus Christ. He was a white nationalist crystal fascist. And no, they are not the same thing. And furthermore, this is about personal responsibility. Right? Because don't conservatives always tell us about, well, the reason you're poor is because you don't take responsibility for, the things you haven't done. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't get a good enough education. You didn't do this. You didn't save any money. You spend your money on designer bags, designer shoes. All lies. But they always bring up this personal responsibility garbage when it comes to us. And talking about the legacy of what they have done, the violence they have carried out against us. So, yeah, this is also about personal responsibility, what happened to Charlie Kirk. Because when you realize that freedom of speech does not mean freedom from impact of that speech, when that speech advocates violence against others, then yeah, you should be a little bit more responsible with what you say about other people and what you hope would happen to them because you don't agree with them. The thing is, these folks are used to people trying to appeal to their morality as opposed to getting fed up. And you see what I'm saying? What happened this past week was a shock to these folks because that is not what has been happening historically. It's happened a few times, but not often. So they're very, very much shook by the fact that it happened at all. But of course, today, they're even more shook that it wasn't one of the people that they claimed probably did it. Right? Because now that we know who did it, now all of these conversations about the blacks and the gangs and the crime and the gays and the trans and the feminists, oh, now they're not talking about that no more. They're not talking about that anymore. Because now, where is that video of the I think it's the governor of Utah or maybe the mayor of that town. I don't know. Let me play this video because this is just ridiculous. This is what they're saying now. Let's see. Where are you?
You know, this bad stuff happens. And for 33 hours, I was praying that if this had to happen here, that it wouldn't be one of us. That somebody drove from another state, somebody came from another country. Sadly, that prayer was not answered the way I hoped for. Just because I thought it would make it easier on us if we could just say, hey, we don't do that here. And indeed, Utah is a special place. We lead the nation in charitable giving. We lead the nation in service every year. But it did happen here. You know,
That fool is crying. He is crying because he just realized white people are fucking violent. He is crying. and I'm sorry. Let me go back to mine because I know some of y'all go, but I don't give a shit. But as a liberation theology follower of brown Palestinian socialist Jesus Christ, who the fuck prays that somebody that the person who committed a crime is a foreigner? Who pray? The only people who would pray such a depraved and racist fucking prayer are depraved racists. I don't know how else to say it. These people are not Christians. They're not. They are Klansmen. They are Nazis. They are white supremacists. They are settler colonists, settler colonialists. I always confuse that one. They can call themselves whatever they want, but no normal human being of any faith would legitimately pray that and tell everybody that they prayed. But this man is standing there crying because he's like, oh my God, this state is, I mean, we're all the same here. Yeah, we know Utah is white. We know it's like, what, less than 5% black, I think. And he is crying because a little white boy from Utah did this. It wasn't a Muslim, like Netanyahu said. It wasn't the blacks, like Charlie Kirk supporters said. And then some of those people went on to make bomb threats against HBCUs. Several HBCUs yesterday had to shut down amid some of these bomb threats. Yeah, these people were preemptively gonna like just go out and punish all the people that they believed were responsible for Charlie Kirk's racism because they know he talked about us like shit. So if they did not know that he was racist against black people and they didn't know who shot him, why would they automatically assume that it was black people behind it and they were gonna go and call in a bunch of bomb threats to HBCUs? Come on. These people, stop praying for them. By the way, stop praying for them. My fellow believers in Christ, dear God, stop praying for these people. Stop praying that they are going to their heart, that God is going to change their heart. Look, man, God got enough. Whatever they are going to get at the end of their life, all of them have reaped what they have sown. Stop praying for them people. It ain't going to help. If some of their people want to go and try to talk to them and struggle with them, God bless you. Help. Wonderful. God bless you. But us? No, stop praying for them people. Stop thinking they're going to do better and be better. They will not. But it's wild, man. This man is sitting there. He is just crying before we knew who the shooter was. The right preemptively blamed all the people they had always been hating, that they knew damn well Charlie Kirk talked about like shit. Trans people, black people, Muslims. But now that the shooter is a young white boy from Utah, so here's my question, y'all. Here's my question. Is Trump going to send in the National Guard to Utah to take over the police in the city where this happened? To control white youth crime that is obviously out of control? Is that going to happen? DC wants to know. DC is really curious about when the National Guard is going to be deployed to that little town in Utah to deal with that, violent white youth crime. Will ICE now be redirected to go round up all the potentially violent young white males and deport them somewhere to be permanently institutionalized, like that white conservative woman on Fox News said a couple of days ago about mentally ill people needing to be yanked off the street and forcibly institutionalized forever after the horrendous murder by a mentally unstable young Black man of a young white Ukrainian immigrant woman that happened a couple of days ago. One of those immigrants that are not being rounded up and deported by ICE. But ICE going to Utah now to institutionalize, or somebody going to Utah to round up all the violent white. Will ICE be redirected? Will the National Guard be redirected around the country where Trump is going to deploy more National Guard? Are they going to be redirected to go and patrol the white neighborhoods to look out for signs of violent white youth? We know that's not going to happen. And then I think about the fact that the press in the US produced stories like the hate that hate produced after the assassination of Malcolm X. You remember that? Now, or maybe that was before, but anyway, my brain is a mess. Now though, these folks, even though they know that the shooter is one of theirs, they still won't admit to Charlie Kirk's loudly, openly, unapologetically screeched hate for people who did nothing to him. And they're trying to humanize a terrorist. But they aren't going to do that. They aren't going to admit that the things he said was hateful, because they would have to admit that they are hateful too. They would have to admit that they are racist, that they are xenophobic, that they are patriarchal. They would have to admit that they are all of the things that the woke mob that they hate so much said they are. So no, they're never going to admit that Charlie Kirk really did reap what he sowed, because then they would have to admit that they are going to have to reap what they sow too. And then liberals are being absolutely ridiculous with the sympathy and prayers and violence is not the answer. We must condemn political violence. But again, like I said, just a few years ago, Stop Cop City protests were organized in cities where the mayors had already approved those cop cities to be built, or were going to approve that they were going to be built. Those Democrat mayors, most of them, who wanted to spend public money, taxpayer money, that could have gone to education, housing, healthcare, but it was used, or they wanted to use it to build a militarized police base in working class and poor, largely Black neighborhoods. That is political violence. Putting a militarized police base in a poor neighborhood to deploy cops faster to control the people more easily, that's political violence. It's the reason the US has military bases all over the world, by the way, to easily deploy US troops and bombs to put down uprisings in those countries where US interference and imperialist domination and capitalist exploitation is carried out right now. Poverty, racial profiling, mass deportations, denial of health care, criminalizing homelessness, denying education are all acts of political violence that the ruling class carries out against the working class and poor every single day in this country and around the world. We want to end political violence, end that political violence. Start there. So, man, any additional repression that these folks were threatening to carry out, that wasn't even some new thing that they were going to cook up, right? They were already celebrating the repression that's already going on. But now they can't really legitimately do anything extra to us that they weren't already doing, because the shooter is one of them. And who they going to repress? They're not going to repress themselves. So look, for me, I think this is a lesson, I think, in the need to always stand on the truth and your principles, regardless of how crazy and stupid everybody else is being, trying to pretend that they're moral people, but they're actually cowards. These liberals, crying over Charlie Kirk and, violence is not the answer. Violence has been the greeting. It has been the message. It has been the declaration. It has been the answer for Europeans in this country and around the world since Europeans crawled the hell out of Europe. They brought the violence. The response to them, and when I say they, I do mean conservatives and liberals, for all of the reasons and more that I just don't have time to go into, but for all of the reasons that I just said, conservatives and liberals, the GOP and the Democrats, they are all very committed to the idea of violence as policy. Violence as a coercive measure, violence as a preventative measure, violence as an answer to problems. These people are living out, they are reflecting, they are being honest about what their values actually are when they act in the way that we see them acting now. The conservatives these are their values, and they will not change. They're not going to change. I don't care how much we talk to them. I don't care how much we try to prove to them. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, somebody shouldn't have a conversation or two with some of them, but we do need to recognize that most of these people are entrenched in what they believe, and it cannot be our responsibility to both fight and struggle for liberation and also try to drag them along out of their cave of settler colonial domination. They like it there. So I'm for me, not a lot of conversations I'm going to have with those people. I'm not going to debate online with them. And about these debates, these, what's her name? Mehdi Hassan debates 20 MAGAs, and whoever the young woman was, oh my gosh, Amanda Seals, I think that's who it was. Amanda Seals debates 20. Man, stop. First of all, this whole debate for the sake of debate, it's 2025. I don't think the contradictions of capitalism can be heightened any higher. What are we debating? What are we debating with these people? I don't understand what you think you are accomplishing by first of all, by debating 20 people at the same time, or however they do it. But you're not going to change these people's minds. And even if you are going to change one of their minds, Mehdi Hassan, Amanda C, liberals, where were these people during the genocide? What, wasn't Mehdi Hassan kind of quiet? What has he said about Congo? What has she said about Haiti? See, this is why we got to be very careful about these liberals who claim to be resisting the conservatives and the fascists. These folks are not anti-imperialists. They're not anti-capitalists. So there is a level of oppression that even they are happy with, because they're just as what's the word I'm looking for? They are just as committed to this system of oppression as conservatives are. They just don't want to be as overtly violent or mean or nasty about carrying out the same oppression, but they absolutely want to carry out the same oppression. You can't tell me that people who call themselves Democrats or liberals, but who are better than conservatives, fascists, the MAGA people, you can't tell me Democrats are better than them when Democrats co-signed genocide. All argument about Democrats being better than Republicans end with the fact that it was under the Biden administration that this particular iteration of this genocide began. And every Democrat, practically, with the exception of a few and a literal handful, supported it and still do, and supported all of the repression against me and you and everybody who has been doing everything we can to raise our voices against this genocide. They have supported our repression. How are Democrats better? How are liberals better than conservatives, than Republicans, than the MAGAs, than the fascists, when they're all in on genocide too? You don't think that Democrats who are fine with the slaughter of Palestinians, who they think are all Arabs, because it's Islamophobia, y'all, by the way. It's Islamophobia. White folks and some non-white folks in this country who call themselves Democrats and liberals who are supporting this genocide, it's because they hate Muslims. It's because they hate Arabs. It's because of Islamophobia. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a whole bunch of liberals and a whole bunch of Democrats are fucking racists too. They're better than Republicans? Not from where I sit. Not from where I sit after having, you know what I mean. So listen, I don't ever want to talk about Charlie Kirk again. Jesus Christ. It's just, we have got to, I think, be very clear that what we see from folks on both sides of the very right-leaning political spectrum, we do not have a political left in this country. Democrats are not the left. The GOP is far-right fascist. The Democrats are right-wing liberal fascists. And then there's everybody else who is somewhere to the left of them. That's the problem in this country. We are not clear on what people's beliefs and ideologies really are. We are not clear on what the political parties really are, who they are, and the fact that they both basically believe the same things now. Yes, there was a time when the Democratic Party seemed to be the party that represented oppressed and marginalized people. But as I think I talked about in A Darker Than Blue a few weeks ago, in the late 80s, early 90s, the Democratic Party intentionally and publicly changed their strategy as a party to abandon policies to address the inequality that marginalized people faced, and made a conscious decision to include in their platform policies that were borrowed from the GOP, from conservatives, so that Democrats could appeal to alleged moderate conservative voters, because that's what they said they needed to do to win elections, not to appeal to the marginalized people who they were supposed to be representing, who are the majority of the people in this country. Even white people. Most white people in this country are not rich. There are a lot of poor white people in this country, a lot, that had the Democratic Party maintained their platform, their commitment to pursuing equality and justice for all people, the Democratic Party wouldn't be in the position it's in now if they didn't decide to pivot to what they called third way politics, the third way strategy. That's what they called it, third way. There's the Democrat way, there's the Republican way, but there's a third way, and it's going straight down the middle. That's how they describe it. And it was public. They didn't hide it. It was not a secret. So how do people still believe that the Democrats are on our side when they literally said, no, we're not. We're not on their side anymore. We're on the side of the moderate Republican voters. We want them in our tent. We don't want marginalized people. So I think this moment, more than anything else, the way this nation, the politicians on both sides of the aisle, the supporters, the followers, the regular folks responded to this situation, I think it's a light bulb. Aha, please don't miss this moment, because I really do think that this is a moment that when people show you who they are, believe them. Believe them. This is not the first time these people have shown us who they are, but I really think that if we don't believe them this time, we are in some real trouble. So these folks are going to do what they do. They're not going to change. Something else is going to happen, and they're going to respond the exact same way. The question is, what you going to do? What are you going to do? This is how it's going to be for the next however long Trump stays in office. And I've been saying this. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't know that he's going to make the whole 4 years. Don't know. Doubt it. Don't know how it's going to end. Don't know when it's going to end. But he's eventually going to leave. And somebody's going to take his place, whether it's going to be J.D. Vance or it's going to be after another election and the Democrats might, end up back in the White House again. Okay, so then when that happens, what y'all going to do? Y'all going to go home and go like, whoo, fascism is over because Trump is gone. I mean, just like Seth said in the interview for Darker Than Blue. George Jackson said in 1973, fascism is already here. It's already here. We've been telling you that, but you don't want to listen. You keep telling. I've had so many arguments with people about the word fascism and what it means that they miss the point that the characteristics of fascism have always been here. And if the characteristics of fascism have always been here, then guess what? I mean, you don't have symptoms of cancer and don't have cancer. That's because the symptoms are what tell you that you have. You know what I'm? So these are perilous times for a lot of people. I think these are perilous times for this country, which is that's not a bad thing, I don't think. Definitely perilous times for capitalism and the empire. And they're trying to hold on to what they have with everything for dear life. So now is the time for us to be the most brave and consistent and committed and dialectically clear that we can possibly be. Don't be a fucking coward. It doesn't matter what these people say about what we believe. You don't like communism? I don't care. I don't care. Just like I don't care that you don't like Christianity. I don't care. I do not care. You think cultural Marxism is an evil thing? Okay. You don't like that we're supporting Palestine? You think that I am in league with Hamas? Okay. All right, believe what you want. But please understand, I am never going to mourn Klansmen and Nazis. You bet not do it either. You bet not ever open up your mouth and say some stupid shit like violence is not the answer. Violence has been the only statement this country has ever made since this country has existed as this thing called the United States of America. Stop letting these people tell you that defending yourself from fascism is violence. No, your answer is fascism is violence. You are violent, and I have a right to defend myself against you. So maybe if you don't want what could come, maybe you should go the fuck home and mind your damn business and let other people live their lives. Otherwise, just like the good book says, you reap what the fuck you sow. That's all I got for tonight. Thanks so much, y'all. Appreciate you. And I'll see you next week when I'm sure something else crazy is going to happen. And I'm going to be exasperated again. Anyway, thanks a lot, y'all. Have a good night. I'll see you next week. Peace.